Welcome to the sacred space of healing stories. Allow your soul to relax, your breath to soften, and join us as we explore the legends of the healing chamber, a place that brings profound peace to your sleep and blesses your sacred space. Story 1. The discovery of the ancient chamber. Welcome, dear traveler of dreams. Close your eyes and let your breathing become slow and natural. Tonight, we journey together to a place where time stands still and healing flows like gentle water over smooth stones. Our story begins with Marcus, a merchant who had wandered the dusty roads for countless days. His mind churned with worries, unpaid debts, failed ventures, relationships that had crumbled like autumn leaves. Sleep had become his enemy, arriving only in restless fragments that left him more exhausted than before. The sun was setting behind purple mountains when Marcus stumbled upon ruins that seemed forgotten by time itself. Ancient stones lay scattered like sleeping giants, covered in moss that glowed softly in the twilight. Something called to him from within these weathered walls. Not a voice, but a feeling that pulled at his weary soul. As darkness deepened, Marcus noticed a strange phenomenon. Where other ruins would grow cold and forbidding, these stones seemed to emanate warmth. The air itself felt different here, charged with an energy that made his restless thoughts begin to quiet. Following an inexplicable urge, Marcus began moving stones that blocked what appeared to be an entrance. Each stone felt lighter than it should, as if the very earth wanted to reveal what lay hidden beneath. His hands moved without conscious direction, guided by an ancient wisdom that seemed to flow through the ruins themselves. After an hour of gentle excavation, an opening appeared. Cool air drifted upward, carrying with it the scent of jasmine and sandalwood. A soft golden light emanated from below, not harsh like sunlight, but gentle as candle flame reflected in still water. Marcus descended carved stone steps that spiraled downward into the earth. Each step he took, the weight of his troubles seemed to lift. The golden light grew stronger, and he began to hear something extraordinary, a subtle humming that seemed to come from the very walls themselves, a frequency that made his heart slow to a peaceful rhythm. And the stairs opened into a circular chamber that took his breath away. The walls were lined with crystals that pulsed with gentle light, their surfaces smooth as silk and warm to the touch. In the center of the room stood a single crystal formation tall as a person, its faceted surface casting rainbow patterns that danced slowly across the ceiling. As Marcus stepped into the chamber, something remarkable happened. The constant chatter in his mind simply stopped. For the first time in months, perhaps years, his thoughts became clear and calm. The tension in his shoulders melted away like snow in spring sunshine. His breathing deepened naturally, each exhale releasing worry, each inhale drawing in pure tranquility. The crystal formation seemed to pulse in harmony with his heartbeat, creating a cocoon of peace around him. The golden light wasn't coming from any visible source. It seemed to emanate from the crystals themselves, as if they had been storing sunlight for centuries and were now sharing it freely. Marcus found himself drawn to a smooth section of the chamber floor. As he sat down, the stone felt perfectly warm beneath him, as if it had been waiting for his arrival. The humming sound continued, and he realized it wasn't just coming from the walls. It was resonating from within his own body, as if he and the chamber were becoming one harmonious instrument. Time seemed to move differently here. Marcus couldn't tell if minutes or hours had passed. His eyelids grew heavy, but not with the desperate exhaustion he'd known for so long. This was different, a gentle, natural sleepiness that felt like a gift rather than a surrender to fatigue. As sleep began to claim him, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced since childhood: complete safety. The chamber wrapped around him like loving arms, protecting him from all the harsh realities of the world above. Here in this sacred space, nothing could harm him. No predator could find him, no worry could touch him, no fear could disturb his rest. The last thing Marcus remembered before drifting into the deepest sleep of his life was a presence, gentle, maternal, infinitely loving, watching over him. Though he saw nothing with his physical eyes, he felt absolutely certain that he was not alone, that this ancient chamber held guardians whose only purpose was to provide healing rest to weary souls like his. When Marcus finally stirred, he had no idea how long he had slept. The golden light continued its gentle pulsing, the crystals hummed their peaceful song, and he felt completely renewed. Every cell in his body seemed to vibrate with new energy. His mind was clear, his heart was light, and for the first time in years, he felt genuinely hopeful about the future. As he prepared to leave this miraculous sanctuary, Marcus placed his hand on the central crystal and whispered a prayer of gratitude. The crystal pulsed brighter for a moment as if acknowledging his thanks, and he knew with absolute certainty that this place would remain with him forever. And now, dear listener, as Marcus's story draws to a close, allow yourself to feel that same peace descending upon you. Your own sacred chamber surrounds you now, your bed, your room, your very breath, becoming a sanctuary of healing rest. Sleep comes easily when the heart is at peace, and peace flows naturally when we remember that we too are held in loving embrace by forces greater than our understanding. Rest now, knowing that you are safe, you are loved, and you are exactly where you need to be. Story 2. The Guardian of Peaceful Dreams. Let your breathing become even deeper. Now, dear dreamer, tonight we return to the sacred chamber, but this time you will meet someone very special, a presence who has been waiting for you since the beginning of time itself. Our story tonight follows Elena, a young healer who had spent years tending to others while neglecting her own wounded spirit. She had heard whispers of the ancient chamber from an elderly patient, stories passed down through generations of those who sought refuge from the storms of life. Elena arrived at the ruins during the darkest hour before dawn, when the veil between worlds grows thin and magic flows more freely. The stones seemed to recognize her immediately, parting like a curtain to reveal the hidden entrance. As she descended the familiar spiral steps, the golden light welcomed her like an old friend. But as Elena entered the crystal chamber, she sensed something different from the stories she had heard. The air shimmered with an energy that felt distinctly feminine, nurturing, and infinitely patient. The crystals pulsed with a rhythm that matched her own heartbeat, but there was another presence here, ancient, wise, and profoundly loving. As Elena settled onto the warm stone floor, the chamber began to transform around her. The golden light softened into silver, like moonbeams filtered through gossamer clouds. The crystal formations seemed to rearrange themselves, creating a natural alcove that embraced her like a mother's arms. Then she appeared. At first, Elena thought it was simply her imagination, a gentle shift in the light, a movement at the edge of her vision. But gradually, a figure materialized from the very essence of the chamber itself. She was neither young nor old, but timeless in the way that mountains are timeless, or oceans, or stars. Her hair flowed like liquid starlight, moving with currents of air that existed only in sacred spaces. Her eyes, held the depth of centuries, filled with compassion for every soul who had ever suffered, every heart that had ever been broken, every mind that had ever known despair. The guardian spoke without words, her voice resonating directly within Elena's consciousness, like the memory of a lullaby. Welcome, daughter of healing. You have given so much of yourself to others. Tonight, let me give to you. Elena felt tears of relief flowing down her cheeks. For so long, she had been the strong one, the caregiver, the one who held space for others' pain. She had forgotten what it felt like to be cared for, to be seen, to be held in perfect understanding. The guardian moved with fluid grace, her form seeming to be made of the same luminous energy that filled the chamber. She began to weave something in the air, not with physical hands, but with intention and love. Threads of silver light spun themselves into patterns that Elena's conscious mind couldn't comprehend, but her soul recognized immediately. These were dream threads, the guardian explained in her wordless way. Each thread carries healing, each pattern erases a wound, each weaving restores what has been damaged by harsh experience. As the guardian worked, Elena felt her eyelids growing heavy with the most delicious sleepiness she had ever experienced. This wasn't the exhausted collapse she knew from her daily life, but a willing surrender to something beautiful and restorative. The silver threads began to surround Elena, not restricting her, but cradling her like a cocoon of pure love. Through the threads, she could feel the guardian's own essence. Countless ages of watching over troubled sleepers, of standing guard against nightmares, of ensuring that those who found their way to this sacred space received exactly the healing they needed. As sleep claimed Elena, the guardian's presence intensified rather than faded. In her dreams, Elena found herself in a garden that existed beyond time and space. Here, every flower represented a moment of joy she had forgotten. Every tree stood for strength she didn't know she possessed. Every stream carried away sorrows that no longer served her. The guardian walked beside her through this dreamscape, showing her visions of her own life from a perspective of infinite compassion. Elena saw her younger self so eager to help others, so willing to sacrifice her own well-being for the sake of healing. She saw the beauty in that dedication, but also the gentle wisdom that reminded her that self-care was not selfish but necessary. In the dream garden, Elena met other versions of herself. The child who had dreamed of being a healer, the teenager who had first felt the calling to serve the young woman who had dedicated her life to others' well-being. Each version of herself had gifts to offer, wisdom to share, love to give back to her present self. The guardian showed Elena how to gather these gifts, how to reclaim the parts of herself she had scattered in service to others. With gentle hands made of moonlight and compassion, the guardian helped Elena weave these aspects back into her soul, creating a stronger, more integrated version of herself. Through the night, the guardian continued her work. She visited every corner of Elena's consciousness, finding places where pain had lodged itself like thorns and dissolving them with her loving presence. She located memories that had become distorted by shame or regret and restored them to their original beauty. She uncovered strengths that had been buried under layers of doubt and polished them until they shone like precious gems. As dawn approached in the world above, the guardian began to prepare Elena for her return to waking consciousness. But this would not be the harsh awakening that Elena had known for years. The jarring alarm, the immediate flood of responsibilities, the crushing weight of others' needs. Instead, the guardian orchestrated a gentle emergence from sleep like a flower opening slowly to the morning sun. Elena's consciousness rose through layers of peaceful dreams, each one leaving her more refreshed, more integrated, more whole than before. When Elena finally opened her eyes in the crystal chamber, the guardian was still there, though becoming more translucent as the golden light of day began to fill the space. Their eyes met, and in that moment, Elena understood that she would never be alone again. The guardian's love was now woven into the very fabric of her being, a source of strength and comfort that would remain with her always. As Elena prepared to leave the chamber, the guardian offered one final gift: the knowledge that Elena herself could become a guardian for others, not through exhausting herself or sacrificing her well-being, but by maintaining her own wholeness and allowing that wholeness to be a beacon of hope for those who were still searching for their way to healing. The guardian faded with the strengthening daylight, but her presence remained as a warmth in Elena's heart, a whisper of encouragement in her mind, a constant reminder that love was the most powerful healing force in the universe. And now, dear listener, as Elena's story comes to a close, know that the guardian watches over you as well. In this very moment, as you rest in your own sacred space, she weaves dreams of healing around you. Let yourself sink deeper into sleep, knowing that you are protected, you are loved, and you are being restored in ways that your conscious mind cannot even imagine. The guardian's silver threads surround you now, carrying away your troubles and replacing them with peace. Sleep deeply, dream beautifully, and wake tomorrow more whole than you were today. Story 3. The Crystal of Infinite Tranquility. Breathe slowly now and let your body sink deeper into comfort. Tonight, we journey once more to the sacred chamber, where an ancient crystal holds secrets that have waited eons to be discovered. Our story follows David, a musician whose gift for creating beautiful melodies had been stolen by the noise of modern life. For months, every note he played sounded hollow, every rhythm felt forced, every song emerged discordant and incomplete. His very soul felt out of tune with the universe itself. David had heard about the crystal chamber from a fellow musician who spoke of a place where harmony lived in its purest form. Desperate to rediscover his musical spirit, David made the pilgrimage during the night of the new moon, when silence reigns supreme, and even the smallest sounds carry profound meaning. The ruins welcomed him like an old amphitheater awaiting its performer. As David descended the spiral staircase, he noticed something remarkable happening to his perception of sound. Each footstep created a perfect note that seemed to linger in the air longer than physics should allow. His breathing became a gentle rhythm section, his heartbeat a steady bass line. When David entered the chamber, he gasped in wonder. At the center stood a crystal formation unlike anything he had ever seen. It rose from the floor like a frozen symphony, its faceted surfaces catching and refracting the golden light into countless rainbow fragments. But it was not the visual beauty that stopped him in his tracks. It was the sound. The crystal was singing, not with any voice that human ears were accustomed to hearing, but with a frequency that bypassed the eardrums entirely and resonated directly within his bones, his blood, his very DNA. It was the sound of creation itself, the fundamental frequency from which all music springs, the cosmic chord that holds galaxies in perfect harmony. David approached the crystal with reverence, his musician's instincts recognizing something sacred and powerful. As he drew closer, he felt his own internal rhythms beginning to align with the crystal's vibration. His chaotic thoughts settled into patterns. His anxious breathing deepened into steady measures. His racing heart slowed to match the ancient pulse. The crystal seemed to recognize him as a kindred spirit, its luminescence intensified, and the chamber filled with harmonics that made David's entire being vibrate like a perfectly tuned instrument. He reached out tentatively and placed his palm against the crystal's surface. The moment skin met stone, David experienced something beyond description. It was as if every cell in his body suddenly remembered its original song, the perfect note it was meant to sing in the grand symphony of existence. Years of discord and disharmony began to unravel, replaced by an internal music so beautiful it brought tears to his eyes. The crystal began to share its ancient memories with David. Through waves of resonant frequency, he experienced the moment when this chamber was first created by masters who understood that sound was the fundamental building block of reality. He felt their intention crystallized into this magnificent formation to preserve perfect harmony for future generations who might lose their way. David saw how countless souls had visited this crystal over the centuries. Warriors whose internal battles had left them fractured lovers, whose hearts had been broken into discordant pieces, artists whose creative spirits had been silenced by doubt and fear. Each visitor had placed their hands upon the crystal and received exactly the healing frequency they needed. As David maintained contact with the crystal, he began to understand that healing was not about fixing what was broken, but about remembering what was already perfect. The crystal was not adding anything to him. It was simply reminding his cells of their original blueprint, their intended vibration, their role in the cosmic symphony. Layer by layer, the crystal's frequency penetrated deeper into David's being. It reached his muscles, dissolving tension patterns that had formed from years of stress and struggle. It flowed through his nervous system, rewiring pathways that had become tangled with anxiety and self-doubt. It permeated his organs, optimizing their function through perfect vibrational alignment. But the deepest healing occurred at the level of his heart. The crystal's frequency found the place where David's love of music lived, a place that had become locked away behind walls of disappointment and commercial pressure. With infinite gentleness, the crystal's vibration unlocked those barriers, allowing David's musical passion to flow freely once again. David began to hear music everywhere. The subtle hum of the chamber walls created bass notes. The gentle movement of air through the crystals provided a delicate melody line. The sound of his own breathing became percussion. Even the beating of his heart transformed into the rhythm section of a cosmic orchestra. As the night progressed, David found himself naturally beginning to move in harmony with the crystal's frequency. His body swayed like a conductor directing an invisible symphony. His hands moved through the air, drawing melodies from the very atmosphere. His voice began to hum along with the crystal's song, creating harmonies that seemed to enhance rather than compete with the ancient frequency. The crystal responded to David's musical participation by increasing its luminescence and expanding its harmonic range. New frequencies emerged, creating complex musical patterns that spoke directly to David's soul. He realized he was experiencing a collaboration with the universe itself, a jam session with the fundamental forces of creation. Through this musical communion, David began to understand profound truths about sound and healing. He saw how every emotion had its own frequency, how every thought created ripples in the vibrational field, how every word spoken could either harmonize with or disrupt the cosmic song. The crystal showed him that his role as a musician was not merely to entertain, but to be a healer, a frequency therapist, a keeper of harmony in a world that had forgotten how to sing in tune. Every song he created had the power to restore balance. Every melody could unlock healing. Every rhythm could help hearts remember their perfect beat. As dawn approached, the crystal began to prepare David for his return to the ordinary world. But rather than simply releasing him, it embedded a permanent frequency within his being, a tuning fork of sorts that would help him maintain his connection to perfect harmony no matter where life took him. David understood that he would carry a piece of the crystal's wisdom with him always. In moments of stress or confusion, he could tune into this internal frequency and find his center again. When creating music, he could access the crystal's harmonic library and channel frequencies that would heal his listeners. Most importantly, David realized that every person he encountered was like an instrument waiting to be tuned. Through his music, his presence, his very being now aligned with cosmic harmony, he could help others remember their own perfect frequency. As David finally rose to leave the chamber, he placed both hands on the crystal one last time and sang a note of pure gratitude. The crystal resonated with his offering, and for a moment, the entire chamber filled with a sound so beautiful, so perfect, that it seemed to heal the very fabric of reality itself. David carried that sound with him as he ascended the stairs and merged into the morning light. And from that day forward, every piece of music he created carried the crystal's frequency of infinite tranquility, healing all who heard it and remembering them of their own inner harmony. And now, dear listener, as David's story draws to a close, feel that same crystal frequency beginning to resonate within your own being. Let it tune every cell to its perfect pitch, every heartbeat to its cosmic rhythm, every breath to its sacred song. Sleep now in perfect harmony, knowing that you too carry this frequency of infinite tranquility within you always. Story 4. The Moonbeam Pathway. Allow your eyelids to grow heavy now, dear traveler. Tonight, we follow a path made of pure moonlight, where each step dissolves the weight of the world and leads us home to our truest selves. Our story tonight follows Sarah, a mother whose days had become an endless cycle of caring for others while forgetting to care for herself. She had given so much of her energy away that she barely remembered who she was beneath all the roles she played. Sleep had become elusive, her mind spinning with tomorrow's responsibilities, even as her body begged for rest. Sarah had heard about the healing chamber from her grandmother, who spoke of a pathway that appeared only under the full moon for those whose hearts truly needed sanctuary. As the silver orb reached its zenith on this particular night, Sarah found herself drawn to the ancient ruins as if by invisible threads. Standing at the edge of the stone circle, Sarah noticed something extraordinary beginning to happen. Where the moonlight touched the weathered stones, it didn't simply illuminate them, it transformed them. Each beam of lunar radiance became solid and luminous, creating steps that glowed like captured starlight. Sarah approached the first moonbeam step with wonder and slight hesitation. As her foot touched the silvery surface, she felt a remarkable sensation. It was as if the step absorbed the weight of her worries, leaving her feeling lighter than she had in years. The anxiety that had been her constant companion began to lift like morning mist touched by sunrise. Encouraged by this unexpected relief, Sarah stepped onto the second moonbeam. Immediately, the tension in her shoulders released, flowing away like water, finding its natural course. The third step dissolved the knot of responsibility that had lived in her stomach for months. With each step forward, layers of accumulated stress simply fell away. The moonbeam pathway curved gently through the ruins, leading her past broken walls that had once housed ancient wisdom. As Sarah walked this luminous trail, she began to notice that her breathing had naturally deepened and slowed. Her mind, usually racing with mental lists and worries, grew quiet and spacious. The pathway seemed to understand exactly what she needed. When Sarah's heart felt heavy with the memory of harsh words she had spoken in frustration, the moonbeam beneath her feet pulsed with forgiveness, reminding her that perfect mothers existed only in imagination and that her love was more important than her mistakes. As she continued walking, Sarah encountered sections of the pathway that spiraled gently upward, lifting her not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. Each ascending step carried away old beliefs that no longer served her. The idea that her worth was measured by how much she sacrificed, the notion that asking for help was a sign of weakness, the fear that taking time for herself was selfish. The moonbeams beneath her feet began to pulse with a rhythm that matched her heartbeat, creating a sense of perfect synchronization between her inner world and the cosmic forces surrounding her. She felt held by something much larger than herself, supported not just by the glowing steps, but by the universe itself. Midway along the pathway, Sarah encountered a section where the moonbeams formed a small circle, inviting her to pause. As she stood in this luminous mandala, she felt the presence of all the mothers who had walked this path before her. Women throughout history who had given so much of themselves that they had forgotten their own names, their own dreams, their own needs. In this sacred pause, Sarah received their collective wisdom. She understood that nurturing others was indeed a holy calling, but that it required her to nurture herself as well. She could not pour from an empty cup, could not give what she did not possess, could not love others fully without first remembering how to love herself. The moonbeam circle pulsed with maternal energy, not the exhausted, depleted energy she had come to associate with motherhood, but the primal, powerful force that creates and sustains life. Sarah felt this energy filling her cells, reminding her body of its incredible strength, its capacity for renewal, its inherent wisdom. As she resumed walking, the pathway began to descend, leading her toward the entrance of the chamber. But this descent felt different from her usual sense of going down into darkness. These moonbeam steps carried her deeper into light, into peace, into a sanctuary that existed beyond the ordinary world. With each descending step, Sarah felt herself releasing more of the false identities she had accumulated. The perfectionist mother, the selfless wife, the woman who never said no. These personas dissolved like sugar in warm tea, leaving behind her essential self luminous and free. The pathway led her to an archway made entirely of crystallized moonlight. As Sarah passed through this portal, she felt herself crossing a threshold, not just into the chamber, but into a new relationship with herself. The woman who emerged on the other side was still a mother, still a caregiver, but now she carried within her the knowledge that her own well-being was sacred too. Inside the chamber, the moonbeam pathway continued, creating a spiral that led to the central crystal. But unlike the other stories this time, the crystal seemed to be responding to the lunar energy, pulsing in rhythm with the moon's phases, waxing and waning in luminosity like a cosmic heartbeat. Sarah followed the spiral pathway to its center, where she found a pool of liquid moonlight surrounding the great crystal. The surface of this luminous pool was perfectly still, reflecting not her physical appearance, but her soul's true essence, radiant, wise, complete. As Sarah knelt beside the pool, she saw images forming in its silvery surface. She witnessed herself as a young girl full of dreams and possibilities before the world taught her to prioritize others' needs above her own. She saw her future self too, a woman who had learned the delicate balance between giving and receiving, between nurturing others and honoring herself. The moonbeam pathway had brought her to this moment of recognition, this place where she could remember who she truly was beneath all the roles and responsibilities. The pool of liquid moonlight invited her to cup some of its essence in her hands and drink. As the luminous liquid touched her lips, Sarah felt a profound transformation beginning at the cellular level. The moonlight was rewiring her neural pathways, creating new connections that would make self-care feel natural rather than selfish boundaries feel necessary, rather than mean rest feel productive rather than lazy. The great crystal pulsed with approval, its energy harmonizing with the lunar essence now flowing through Sarah's veins. She understood that she had been initiated into an ancient sisterhood of women who knew how to care for themselves as tenderly as they cared for others. As the night deepened, Sarah found herself naturally lying down beside the pool of moonlight. The crystal's glow creating a canopy of gentle radiance above her. The moonbeam pathway had done its work, carrying away everything that didn't serve her and delivering her to this place of perfect peace. Sleep came easily now, not the collapsed exhaustion she had known for so long, but a conscious surrender to restoration. In her dreams, Sarah walked many moonbeam pathways, each one leading to different aspects of healing, different rooms in the mansion of her own soul. When morning came, Sarah found that the pathway remained visible to her inner eye. She understood that she could walk this luminous trail whenever she needed to remember her way back to herself. The moonbeams had become part of her internal landscape, a constant reminder that peace was always just a few conscious steps away. As Sarah prepared to return to her ordinary life, she carried with her the gift of the moonbeam pathway. The knowledge that taking care of herself was not separate from taking care of others, but the very foundation that made all other care possible. And now, dear listener, as Sarah's story comes to a close, visualize your own moonbeam pathway forming before you. See how each step dissolves what no longer serves you, how each silvery beam carries you closer to your essential self. Walk this path in your dreams tonight, knowing that it will always be available whenever you need to find your way home to peace. Story 5. The Whispered Mantras of the Walls. Feel your body melting into perfect relaxation now, dear seeker. Tonight, we discover that some walls hold more than stone. They hold the prayers of countless souls who found refuge in sacred spaces throughout time. Our story follows Michael, a scholar who had spent years studying in ancient texts, but had lost faith in their wisdom. Books that once filled him with wonder now felt like dusty relics. Sacred words seemed hollow, emptied of their power by centuries of repetition and misunderstanding. His mind, once sharp and curious, had grown cynical and weary. Michael arrived at the ruins seeking not healing, but historical evidence. He wanted to prove that this supposed healing chamber was nothing more than psychological suggestion, that the stories were fabricated by desperate people clinging to false hope. Armed with recording equipment and scientific skepticism, he approached the ancient stones with academic detachment. As Michael began his descent into the chamber, his recording devices started behaving strangely. Instead of capturing the expected silence, they picked up faint whispers that seemed to emanate from the stone walls themselves. At first, he dismissed this as electromagnetic interference, but as he listened more carefully, patterns began to emerge. The whispers were not random sounds, but fragments of ancient languages. Sanskrit, Aramaic, Latin, and tongues so old they predated written history. Michael's linguistic training allowed him to catch occasional words: peace, healing, gratitude, love, surrender. Each whisper carried an emotional resonance that his scientific mind couldn't explain. Upon entering the crystal chamber, Michael was struck by an overwhelming sense of presence. Not the presence of any single entity, but the accumulated essence of every person who had ever sought solace within these walls. The stones themselves seemed saturated with prayer, meditation, and heartfelt longing for peace. Michael set up his equipment, methodically determined to document whatever phenomena might occur. But as he worked, the whispers grew clearer, and he began to understand that the walls were not just containing sound. They were preserving intention, storing the spiritual energy of countless seekers who had poured their hearts out in this sacred space. The first clear voice he heard belonged to a Roman soldier, speaking in Latin about his weariness with war and his longing for home. The words seemed to come directly from the stone near Michael's left shoulder, as if the soldier himself had pressed his face against that very spot centuries ago and wept. As Michael pressed his ear closer to the wall, more voices joined the first. A medieval monk chanting prayers for forgiveness. A Renaissance woman pleading for her sick child's recovery. A farmer from some forgotten era asking for rain. Each voice was distinct, yet they harmonized together like an eternal choir of human longing. Michael's scientific skepticism began to crumble as he realized he was experiencing something beyond current understanding. These walls had somehow absorbed not just sound, but the entire emotional and spiritual essence of every prayer ever uttered within their embrace. The chamber was a repository of human faith, a living library of the soul's deepest yearnings. Moving around the chamber, Michael discovered that different sections of the wall held different types of prayers. Near the entrance, voices spoke of arrival and hope. Along the eastern wall, dawn prayers of gratitude filled the air. The western stones hummed with evening prayers of release and surrender. The most powerful concentration of voices surrounded the great crystal at the chamber's center. Here the whispers became a symphony of transformation, prayers of healing mantras, of awakening words of profound spiritual breakthrough. Michael realized he was hearing the moments when souls had touched the divine, their ecstatic experiences forever preserved in stone. As he listened to prayer after prayer spanning cultures and centuries, Michael began to understand a profound truth. Despite the vast differences in language, culture, and historical period, the human heart's deepest longings remained remarkably consistent. Every voice carried the same essential message: the desire for peace, love, healing, and connection to something greater than individual existence. The walls whispered to Michael of mothers who had prayed for their children's safety, warriors who had sought forgiveness for necessary violence, leaders who had asked for wisdom to guide their people, lovers who had pleaded for their beloved's return. Each prayer was unique in its specifics, but universal in its underlying need for divine connection. Michael found himself deeply moved by a young girl's voice, speaking in ancient Celtic, asking the spirits to take away her father's pain. Her words were followed by an elderly man's prayer in Chinese, requesting peaceful passage from this world to the next. Then came a Native American chant seeking harmony between all living beings. As the night progressed, Michael stopped trying to record and analyze the phenomena. Instead, he found himself simply listening, allowing the accumulated wisdom of ages to wash over him. The walls were teaching him that every sincere prayer, regardless of religious tradition or cultural background, contributed to the same collective reservoir of spiritual energy. The whispers began to synchronize around Michael, creating waves of sound that seemed to penetrate his very cells. He felt his cynicism dissolving, like salt in water, replaced by a growing sense of awe and connection. These walls had witnessed every possible form of human suffering and every conceivable type of healing prayer. Michael began to add his own voice to the eternal chorus. At first, hesitantly, then with growing confidence, he spoke aloud his own prayers, not the academic words he had studied for years, but the raw, honest longings of his heart. He prayed for the return of wonder, for the ability to see the sacred in everyday life, for connection to the mystery that transcended rational understanding. As his words joined the whispered mantras of the walls, Michael felt something remarkable happening. The chamber was accepting his prayer, weaving it into the eternal tapestry of human longing that surrounded him. His voice became part of the healing symphony that would comfort future seekers who would find their way to this sacred space. The walls whispered back to Michael, sharing with him prayers in languages he couldn't understand, but whose meaning his heart recognized immediately. They were prayers for him, for his healing, for his return to faith. Centuries of seekers were reaching across time to offer him the same comfort he was now providing for those who would come after. Michael realized that the chamber's power came not from any supernatural force, but from this accumulated reservoir of human intention and spiritual energy. Every prayer strengthened the field. Every sincere request for healing added to the chamber's capacity to provide comfort. The walls were a living testament to the power of collective spiritual practice. As dawn approached, the whispers began to fade, but Michael understood they would always be there, waiting for the next seeker who needed to know they were not alone in their spiritual journey. The walls had taught him that prayer was not about getting what you want, but about adding your voice to the eternal conversation between humanity and the divine. Michael packed his equipment with trembling hands, but the real recording had happened within his heart. He now carried within him the voices of countless seekers, their combined wisdom forming a new foundation for his faith. The chamber had transformed him from a skeptical scholar into a bridge between ancient wisdom and modern understanding. As he prepared to leave, Michael placed his palm against the wall one final time and whispered his gratitude. The stone warmed beneath his touch, and he heard his own voice joining the eternal chorus of those who had found healing in this sacred space. And now, dear listener, as Michael's story concludes, know that your own prayers and intentions are joining this eternal symphony. Every sincere request for peace, every heartfelt desire for healing, every moment of gratitude adds to the collective reservoir of spiritual energy that surrounds and supports us all. Sleep now, knowing that you are part of an unbroken chain of seekers who have found their way to the light. Story 6. The Healing Spring's Secret. Let your consciousness flow like gentle water. Now, dear traveler, tonight we discover the source of all healings, a spring that bubbles with liquid light and washes away everything that no longer serves your highest good. Our story follows Anna, a therapist who had spent decades helping others heal their emotional wounds, while her own remained hidden beneath layers of professional composure. She had become so skilled at holding space for others' pain that she had forgotten how to release her own. The weight of accumulated sorrow from countless sessions had settled in her bones like sediment in still water. Anna came to the chamber during the season of spring rains, when the earth itself was engaged in renewal and rebirth. She had heard whispers of a healing spring from a client who spoke of water that could wash away psychic debris, cleansing not just the body, but the soul's deepest wounds. As Anna descended the familiar spiral stairs, she noticed something different in the air. The sound of flowing water echoing softly through the stone passages. The golden light of the chamber seemed to dance and shimmer as if reflecting off moving liquid. Her heart quickened with anticipation and a strange sense of coming home. Entering the crystal chamber, Anna gasped in wonder. Where she had expected to find only stone and crystal, a natural spring bubbled up from the chamber's floor, creating a pool of the clearest water she had ever seen. The spring emerged at the base of the great crystal, as if the stone itself was the source of this miraculous flow. The water caught and amplified the crystal's light, creating ripples of luminescence that painted the chamber walls with ever-changing patterns. But it was not just ordinary water. Each drop seemed to contain its own inner radiance, as if starlight had been dissolved into liquid form. Anna approached the spring with reverence, sensing immediately that this was no ordinary water source. As she knelt beside the pool, she could see clear to its depths, though the bottom seemed to extend far beyond what the chamber's dimensions should allow. Fish made of pure light swam in the deeper reaches, and underwater plants swayed with currents that moved according to cosmic rather than earthly rhythms. The spring spoke to Anna without words, its bubbling voice carrying messages that her heart understood instantly. This water had been flowing since the beginning of time, it told her. Every tear ever shed, every prayer ever whispered, every act of compassion ever performed had found its way into this sacred source. Anna cupped the luminous water in her hands and brought it to her lips. The moment it touched her tongue, she felt a profound transformation, beginning at the cellular level. The water was not just hydrating her body, it was washing away layers of emotional residue that she had carried for years. The first wave of cleansing brought forth tears Anna didn't even know she had been holding. They flowed freely now, mixing with the spring water as if returning to their source. Each tear carried away a specific burden. The grief of a client whose child had died, the fear of a patient who had survived trauma, the rage of someone who had been betrayed by those they trusted. As Anna continued to drink from the spring, she felt these borrowed emotions being gently separated from her own essence and dissolved back into the universal flow of healing energy. She realized she had been carrying psychic weight that was never meant to be hers, trying to heal others by absorbing their pain rather than helping them transform it. The spring showed Anna a vision of her work with new understanding. She saw herself as a clear vessel through which healing could flow rather than a container that collected and stored others' suffering. The water taught her that true healing happened when pain was allowed to move through and transform, not when it was suppressed or absorbed by another. Anna lowered herself fully into the spring, allowing the luminous water to surround her completely. As she floated in its embrace, She felt decades of accumulated tension dissolving from her muscles. The water seemed to know exactly where she held stress and sorrow, finding every tight knot of emotion and gently loosening it with liquid fingers of light. In the depth of the spring, Anna encountered memories she had forgotten. Moments of pure joy from her childhood, instances of profound connection with nature, times when she had felt absolutely loved and supported by the universe. The water was not just washing away the negative, it was restoring the positive experiences that had been buried under layers of professional responsibility and emotional labor. The spring whispered its secrets to Anna as she floated in its healing embrace. It told her that every body of water on earth was connected to this sacred source, that healing was always available to those who knew how to ask. Rain was liquid. Prayer rivers were highways of renewal. Oceans were repositories of collective healing. Anna understood that she could access this spring's energy wherever she was. Every time she drank water mindfully, every time she bathed with intention, every time she stood in the rain with gratitude, she could connect to this wellspring of infinite healing that flowed beneath all of existence. The water began to sing to Anna, its voice harmonizing with the crystal's frequency to create a lullaby that penetrated her very soul. She felt herself becoming one with the flow, her individual consciousness merging temporarily with the universal current of healing that connected all beings across time and space. In this state of unity with the spring, Anna received profound insights about the nature of emotional healing. She saw that pain was not something to be eliminated, but transformed, that suffering could become wisdom when approached with compassion, that wounds could become doorways to deeper empathy and connection. The spring showed Anna how to create healing spaces wherever she went. She learned to imagine this sacred water flowing through her office, cleansing the air of psychic residue after each session. She discovered how to call upon the spring's energy to protect her from absorbing others' pain while still maintaining her capacity for compassion. As the night progressed, Anna felt herself being rebirthed by the spring's waters. The woman who emerged from this baptism of light was still a healer, still deeply committed to helping others. But now she carried within her the wisdom of proper boundaries and self-care. She understood that healing others required her to remain connected to her own source of renewal. The spring began to recede as dawn approached, but Anna knew it would never truly leave her. The water had merged with her cellular structure, creating an internal spring that would continue to flow and cleanse throughout her life. She carried within her now a piece of this eternal source, a wellspring of healing that could never run dry. As Anna prepared to leave the chamber, she offered a prayer of gratitude to the spring. The water bubbled with joy in response, and she understood that her gratitude was itself a form of sacred water flowing back to the source, to nourish the spring that nourished all beings. Anna ascended the stairs with water still dripping from her hair and clothes, but each drop glowed with inner light, marking her as one who had been baptized in the spring of infinite healing. She carried with her not just the memory of this experience, but the living reality of the spring's energy permanently integrated into her being. And now, dear listener, as Anna's story flows to its conclusion, imagine that same healing spring bubbling up within your own heart. Feel its sacred waters washing away all that no longer serves you, cleansing your soul of burdens you were never meant to carry. Let yourself sink into sleep as if floating in that luminous pool, knowing that you too have access to this infinite source of renewal and rebirth. The spring flows through your dreams tonight, carrying away all pain and restoring all joy. Rest in its healing embrace and wake tomorrow refreshed, as if you had been reborn from the very source of life itself. Story 7. The Chamber's Gift of Sacred Sleep. Let your eyelids become impossibly heavy now, dear seeker of rest. Tonight, we enter the deepest mystery of the chamber, where time bends to serve healing and sleep becomes a sacred ritual of renewal. Our story follows Thomas, an insomniac, who had not known true rest for years. His nights were filled with anxious tossing, his days clouded by exhaustion that no amount of caffeine could dispel. Sleep had become his enemy, arriving in fragments so brief and shallow that he woke more tired than when he had lain down. Thomas had tried everything. Medications that left him groggy, meditation techniques that only highlighted his racing thoughts, sleep clinics that offered data but no relief. His body had forgotten how to surrender to rest, trapped in a cycle of hypervigilance that kept him suspended between consciousness and unconsciousness without truly experiencing either. Driven by desperation and the whispered recommendation of a fellow sufferer, Thomas made his way to the ancient ruins on a night when his insomnia had reached its breaking point. He had been awake for 72 hours straight, his perception altered by exhaustion, his defenses worn thin by chronic sleep deprivation. The ruins seemed to pulse with a gentle rhythm that immediately caught Thomas's attention. Where his hyper-alert nervous system usually noticed every sound, every shift in light, every minor discomfort, here he felt an unusual quieting of his internal alarm system. The ancient stones emanated a frequency that seemed specifically designed to soothe overstimulated minds. As Thomas descended the spiral staircase, he noticed his breathing naturally beginning to slow and deepen. The golden light that emerged from below carried with it an almost narcotic quality. Not the harsh sedation of chemical sleep aids, but the gentle drowsiness of a mother's lullaby or a summer afternoon in warm grass. Upon entering the crystal chamber, Thomas felt immediately that this space existed outside normal temporal boundaries. The light here moved differently, pulsing in slow waves that seemed to match the rhythm of deep sleep cycles. The air itself felt thicker, more supportive, as if it could hold him suspended in perfect comfort. The great crystal at the chamber's center was glowing with a soft, rhythmic pulse that reminded Thomas of the heartbeat he had heard in his mother's womb, steady, reassuring, infinitely patient. As he approached this luminous formation, he felt his eyelids growing heavy for the first time in weeks. Thomas found a smooth depression in the chamber floor that seemed perfectly shaped for human rest. As he settled into this natural bed, the stone warmed beneath his body, adjusting its temperature to provide optimal comfort. The surface molded itself to his form, supporting every pressure point while eliminating the small discomforts that usually kept him tossing through the night. The moment Thomas closed his eyes, he felt something remarkable happening. The chamber was actively working to restore his damaged sleep architecture, repairing neural pathways that had been disrupted by years of insomnia. The crystal's frequency was entraining his brainwaves, gently guiding them through the natural progression from alpha to theta to delta states. But this was not ordinary sleep. As Thomas descended through the layers of consciousness, he remained aware that something extraordinary was occurring. Time in the chamber moved according to healing needs rather than clock measurements. Minutes stretched into hours when deep restoration was required, while hours compressed into moments during lighter phases of rest. In the first stage of his sacred sleep, Thomas experienced a profound physical healing. His chronic muscle tension began to unravel as growth hormone flooded his system at levels he hadn't experienced since adolescence. His immune system activated repair protocols that had been suppressed by sleep deprivation. His digestive system reset itself. His cardiovascular system regulated its rhythms. His endocrine system rebalanced its chemical messengers. The chamber seemed to understand exactly how much healing Thomas's body required and adjusted time accordingly. What felt like hours of deep physical restoration may have been minutes or days. Temporal measurement became irrelevant in this space, where healing took precedence over chronology. As Thomas moved deeper into sacred sleep, his consciousness entered realms of experience that normal rest could never access. He found himself in dreamscapes that were simultaneously personal and universal, intimate and cosmic. These were not the fragmented, anxiety-driven dreams of his insomnia, but coherent journeys through landscapes of pure healing. In one dream, Thomas walked through a library where every book contained the solution to a problem he had been struggling with. The knowledge flowed into him effortlessly, not through reading, but through osmosis, as if the chamber was downloading information directly into his consciousness, while his analytical mind was safely asleep. Another dream took him to a garden where every plant represented a relationship in his life. Under the chamber's healing influence, he could see clearly which connections nourished him and which drained his energy. The garden showed him how to tend these relationships with wisdom, how to set boundaries without building walls, how to love without depleting himself. The most profound dream came in the deepest phase of his sacred sleep. Thomas found himself floating in a vast ocean of consciousness where individual identity dissolved into universal awareness. Here, he experienced himself as part of an infinite web of being connected to every living thing that had ever existed or would exist. In this oceanic consciousness, Thomas understood that his insomnia had not been just a personal problem, but a symptom of disconnection from the cosmic rhythms that govern all life. The chamber was teaching his nervous system to remember its place in the larger symphony of existence, to sync with lunar cycles, seasonal changes, and the eternal pulse of creation itself. The chamber's gift extended beyond physical and emotional healing to include prophetic dreams that showed Thomas glimpses of his future self, rested, peaceful living in harmony with natural sleep rhythms. He saw himself teaching others about the sacred nature of rest, helping fellow insomniacs find their way back to healing sleep. These prophetic visions were not fixed predictions, but possibilities that would emerge if Thomas integrated the chamber's teachings into his daily life. He saw how to create sacred sleep rituals in his own bedroom, how to honor the transition from waking to sleeping as a spiritual practice, how to trust his body's innate wisdom about rest and renewal. As the night progressed through its natural cycles, the chamber modulated Thomas's sleep experience to provide exactly what each phase of healing required. During REM sleep, it enhanced the vividness and therapeutic power of his dreams. During deep sleep, it maximized physical restoration and memory consolidation. During lighter sleep phases, it integrated the healing experiences into his conscious awareness. The chamber also worked to repair Thomas's damaged relationship with sleep itself. Years of insomnia had created a fear of bedtime, an anxiety about rest that perpetuated the very problem it feared. The chamber dissolved these negative associations, replacing them with anticipation and trust. Sleep became not something to be conquered, but something to be received as a gift. Thomas experienced sleep as a form of prayer, a surrender to forces greater than his conscious will. The chamber taught him that rest was not passive but actively healing, not escape from life, but deeper engagement with life's restorative powers. Sleep became a spiritual practice, a time when his soul could commune with universal healing energy. As dawn approached in the world above, the chamber began the delicate process of guiding Thomas back to waking consciousness. But this awakening was unlike any he had experienced in years. Instead of the jarring alarm that usually yanked him from insufficient rest, he emerged naturally and gradually like a flower opening to morning sunlight. Thomas awoke feeling completely renewed, not just rested, but fundamentally restored at every level of his being. His eyes were clear, his mind sharp but calm, his body energized but relaxed. He felt as if he had been sleeping for days, though he somehow knew that only a single night had passed. The chamber had given Thomas more than just one night of perfect sleep. It had retrained his entire system for healthy rest. His nervous system now remembered how to down-regulate. Naturally, his mind knew how to release the day's concerns. His body trusted its ability to heal through sleep. As Thomas prepared to leave the chamber, he understood that he carried within him now the blueprint for sacred sleep. Every night could become a mini pilgrimage to this healing space, every bedtime ritual a way of invoking the chamber's transformative power. The chamber had taught Thomas that sleep was not simply the absence of waking, but the presence of profound healing intelligence. Rest was revealed as humanity's most natural form of meditation, the state in which body, mind, and spirit could align with cosmic rhythms of renewal. And now, dear listener, as Thomas's story draws to its peaceful close, feel the chamber's gift of sacred sleep descending upon you. Let your body remember its innate wisdom about rest. Let your mind release its grip on the day's concerns. Let your spirit float free in the healing ocean of consciousness. Time moves differently here in your sacred sleep space. 1 hour can contain the restoration of 8. One dream can heal a lifetime of wounds. Trust in the chamber's gift now, knowing that your sleep tonight will be profound healing and exactly what your soul needs for renewal. Story 8. The Return to the Ordinary World. Let your breath become the bridge between worlds. Now, dear traveler, tonight we complete our sacred journey, discovering how the chamber's deepest gift is not escape from the ordinary world, but the transformation of everyday life into continuous sanctuary. Our final story follows Rebecca, a seeker who had heard all the previous tales and felt called to visit the chamber not for healing a specific wound, but to understand how sacred wisdom could be integrated into the demands of modern life. She was a teacher, mother, and community leader who wondered how someone with earthly responsibilities could maintain the peace that others had found in mystical places. And Rebecca arrived at the ruins during the liminal time between seasons when autumn was surrendering to winter and the natural world was demonstrating how to release what no longer served while preparing for renewal. She came not as a desperate seeker, but as a student ready to learn the chamber's final lesson, the art of conscious return. As Rebecca descended the now familiar spiral staircase, she noticed something different about her experience. Unlike the previous visitors, who had been drawn by crisis or deep need, she approached the chamber with curiosity and reverence, rather than desperation. The golden light seemed to recognize this quality in her, welcoming her not as someone seeking healing, but as someone ready to become a healer. Upon entering the crystal chamber, Rebecca gasped in wonder. All the elements from the previous stories were present simultaneously. The moonbeam pathway spiraled around the room's perimeter. The healing spring bubbled at the crystal's base. The guardian's silver presence shimmered in the corners, and the walls whispered their ancient mantras while the great crystal pulsed with infinite tranquility. But Rebecca understood immediately that she was witnessing something unprecedented. The chamber was showing her its complete nature, revealing how all these magical elements were actually facets of a single unified truth. The moonbeam path was the journey, the spring was the cleansing, the guardian was the protection, the whispered mantras were the accumulated wisdom, the crystal was the focal point of healing energy, but all were expressions of one fundamental force. As Rebecca approached the central crystal, she felt herself being gently examined by the chamber's intelligence. Unlike visitors who came seeking to receive, Rebecca had come to understand how to give back, how to carry the chamber's gifts into the world and share them with others who might never find their way to this physical location. The crystal began to pulse with a new frequency, one that Rebecca had never heard described in any of the previous stories. This was the frequency of integration, the vibration that taught how to maintain sacred awareness while navigating ordinary responsibilities. The crystal was preparing to teach her the most advanced lesson: how to become a bridge between worlds. Rebecca sat in meditation before the great crystal, and as she did, she began to receive a series of visions that showed her the true purpose of the healing chamber. She saw that this sacred space had been created not as a permanent refuge from the world, but as a training ground for those who would return to ordinary life as carriers of healing energy. In the first vision, Rebecca watched as each of the previous visitors returned to their daily lives. She saw Marcus, the weary merchant, transforming his business interactions through the peace he had discovered. Every transaction became an opportunity to share calm energy. Every difficult negotiation became a chance to practice the patience he had learned in the chamber. She witnessed Elena, the exhausted healer, now able to care for others without depleting herself, because she carried the guardian's protective presence with her always. Elena's home had become a sanctuary where the guardian's energy could flow through her to comfort family and friends who needed healing. Rebecca observed David the musician composing songs that carried the crystal's frequency to listeners around the world. His music had become a form of sound healing, helping thousands of people access the same tranquility he had discovered in the chamber without ever leaving their own homes. She watched Sarah, the overwhelmed mother, teaching her children how to walk their own moonbeam pathways whenever they felt stressed or frightened. Sarah's family life had become a living demonstration of how sacred practices could transform the most ordinary moments into opportunities for peace and connection. The visions showed Rebecca how Michael, the skeptical scholar, was now documenting the scientific basis for ancient healing practices, building bridges between mystical wisdom and modern understanding. His academic work was helping others accept the possibility of healing beyond conventional methods. She saw Anna, the therapist, creating healing springs in her office through intention and visualization, helping clients access the same cleansing energy that had transformed her relationship with emotional pain. Anna had learned to hold space for others' healing without absorbing their wounds. Rebecca witnessed Thomas, the former insomniac, teaching sleep meditation classes where he helped others discover their own chambers of sacred rest. His bedroom had become a temple of healing sleep, and his peaceful energy helped everyone in his household sleep more deeply. Through all these visions, Rebecca began to understand the chamber's ultimate teaching. The sacred space was not separate from ordinary life. It was the hidden foundation beneath all experience, always accessible to those who knew how to look. The chamber existed not just in this physical location, but as a possibility within every human heart. The great crystal began to share with Rebecca the specific techniques for creating sacred space in any environment. She learned how to call upon the moonbeam pathway by simply walking with conscious intention, feeling each step dissolve what no longer served. Any walk could become a pilgrimage when approached with the right awareness. The crystal taught her how to invoke the guardian's presence through silent prayer and heartfelt intention. Protection and guidance were always available to those who remembered to ask, whether in an ancient chamber or a modern office building. The guardian's love was not confined to mystical spaces, but flowed wherever it was welcomed. Rebecca discovered how to activate the healing spring's energy through any water source. A morning shower could become a baptism of renewal. Drinking a glass of water could become communion with sacred flow. Even tears could connect her to the infinite spring of healing that flowed beneath all existence. She learned how to hear the whispered mantras of any walls by understanding that every space held the accumulated energy of all who had inhabited it. Through conscious intention, she could invoke the highest vibrations that had ever existed in any location while protecting herself from denser energies that might linger there. Most importantly, Rebecca learned how to become a living crystal herself, maintaining the frequency of infinite tranquility regardless of external circumstances. The crystal's teaching revealed that human beings were designed to be conscious repositories of healing energy, mobile sanctuaries capable of transforming any environment through their presence. As the night progressed, the chamber began to demonstrate how these teachings could be applied in specific situations. Rebecca experienced simulated scenarios where she practiced maintaining sacred awareness while dealing with difficult people. Stressful deadlines, financial pressures, family conflicts, and health challenges. In each simulation, she learned to recognize the choice point where she could either react from old patterns of stress and separation or respond from the integrated wisdom of the chamber. The crystal showed her how every challenging situation was actually an opportunity to deepen her spiritual practice, not an interruption of it. Rebecca discovered that the chamber's greatest gift was not the temporary relief it provided from worldly concerns, but the permanent transformation of perspective that allowed every experience to become part of the spiritual path. Work became service relationships, became opportunities for compassion, challenges became chances for growth. The chamber revealed to Rebecca that it had been waiting throughout all of history for humans to mature enough to carry its teachings back into the world. Previous ages had required physical pilgrimage to sacred sites because humanity was not yet ready to understand that the sacred could be accessed anywhere through conscious intention. But now, in this current era, the chamber's wisdom was ready to be dispersed throughout the ordinary world. Rebecca was being trained as one of many who would serve as living bridges between the mystical and mundane, helping others discover that every moment held the potential for healing and transcendence. As dawn approached, the chamber began to prepare Rebecca for her return to ordinary life. But This preparation was unlike the gentle awakening that previous visitors had experienced. Rebecca was being initiated into a more advanced level of consciousness, one that could maintain sacred awareness while fully engaged in worldly responsibilities. The moonbeam pathway rose from the floor to encircle Rebecca, but instead of leading her away from the world, it showed her how to find pathways of light in every environment. City streets could become sacred walkways when approached with proper intention. Office corridors could become moonbeam paths when walked with conscious awareness. The Guardian appeared to Rebecca one final time, but now she understood that the Guardian's presence was not limited to the chamber. This protective, nurturing energy lived within Rebecca herself and could be extended to anyone who came into her presence. She was being empowered to become a guardian for others who had not yet discovered their own inner sanctuary. The healing spring bubbled up around Rebecca's feet one last time, but as she cupped the luminous water in her hands, she understood that she was not drinking from the spring. She was becoming the spring. Every word she spoke could carry healing frequency. Every touch could transmit sacred energy. Every breath could distribute the chamber's peace to her environment. The walls whispered their final teaching to Rebecca, and she realized that she was now joining the eternal chorus of those who had found healing in sacred space. Her own story would become part of the chamber's accumulated wisdom, inspiring future seekers who would find their way to this place of transformation. The great crystal pulsed with a frequency of completion and new beginning as Rebecca prepared to leave. She understood that she was not departing from the chamber, but expanding it, carrying its sacred presence out into the world where it was desperately needed. As Rebecca ascended the spiral staircase for the last time, she felt no sadness at leaving, but excitement about the possibilities that awaited her. Every room in her house could become a crystal chamber through conscious intention. Every interaction could become an opportunity to share healing energy. Every day could become a sacred pilgrimage. Rebecca emerged from the ruins as the sun painted the sky with colors of hope and renewal. She looked back once at the ancient stones, but she knew she would never need to return physically to this place. The chamber now lived within her, a portable sanctuary that she could access at any moment and share with anyone ready to receive its gifts. In the weeks and months that followed, Rebecca's ordinary life became extraordinary through the application of the chamber's teachings. Her classroom became a place where students learned not just academic subjects but life skills of peace and resilience. Her home became a refuge where family and friends could experience unconditional love and acceptance. Rebecca discovered that the chamber's influence grew stronger as she shared it with others. Every person who learned to access their own inner sanctuary became a node in an expanding network of healing energy that was quietly transforming the world from within. She understood finally that the chamber had never been separate from ordinary life. It was the secret dimension that existed within every moment, waiting to be discovered by those who had learned to see with eyes of wonder and reverence. And now, dear listener, as our journey through these sacred stories comes to completion, know that you too carry within you everything you need to transform your ordinary world into continuous sanctuary. The chamber exists wherever you are accessible through breath intention and remembrance of your true nature. Your bedroom is now blessed as a crystal chamber of healing sleep. Your home has become a sacred space where peace dwells and love flows freely. Every step you take can be a moonbeam pathway leading deeper into wisdom. Every challenge you face can be an opportunity to practice the chamber's teachings. Sleep now in your own healing chamber. knowing that you are both student and teacher, seeker and guide, receiver and giver of the infinite healing that flows through all existence. Wake tomorrow as a bridge between worlds, carrying light into every corner of ordinary life until the sacred and mundane are revealed as one seamless whole. The Chamber's blessing remains with you always, transforming every moment into an opportunity for healing, every breath into a prayer, every sleep into a sacred renewal. Rest now, in perfect peace, knowing that you are home. Guided integration, becoming a living chamber. Welcome, dear traveler, to this sacred space of integration. You have journeyed through 8 profound teachings of the healing chamber, and now we gather these gifts together, weaving them into the fabric of your everyday existence. Tonight, you will learn to become a living embodiment of the chamber's wisdom, carrying its transformative power into every moment of your life. Find your most comfortable position now, whether lying down or sitting upright. Allow your body to settle completely, knowing that this space you occupy is already blessed by your intention to integrate healing wisdom. Close your eyes gently and let your breathing become natural and deep. As we begin this integration, imagine yourself standing once more at the entrance to the ancient ruins. But this time you approach not as a seeker in need, but as a wise student ready to receive the chamber's final teaching, how to carry its essence within you always. The stones recognize your transformation, glowing with warm welcome as you pass through their ancient archway. Take 3 deep breaths, now each one connecting you more deeply to the chamber's energy. With your first breath, feel yourself descending the familiar spiral staircase, each step releasing any resistance to change. With your second breath, enter the golden light of the chamber itself, allowing its frequency to harmonize with your own. With your third breath, approach the great crystal, at the center, ready to receive the gift of complete integration. Integration of Marcus's gift, Sacred Foundations. Begin now by connecting with the teaching of Marcus, the weary merchant who discovered that sacred spaces exist when we open our hearts to find them. Place your hand on your heart and feel the warm stone floor of the chamber supporting you. This is your first integration, learning to recognize the sacred foundation that exists beneath every experience. In your daily life, you will encounter moments of stress, overwhelm, and spiritual disconnection. When these moments arise, remember Marcus's teaching. Take a conscious breath and imagine the warm stone floor of the chamber materializing beneath your feet. Feel how the earth itself supports your spiritual journey, how every step you take is on sacred ground when approached with reverence. Practice this now. Think of a current challenge in your life. As you hold this challenge in your awareness, feel the chamber's stone floor supporting you from below. Notice how this foundation changes your relationship to the difficulty. You are not facing this challenge alone or without support. You stand on sacred ground, held by forces greater than any temporary circumstance. Breathe deeply and make this commitment. I will remember that every place I stand is sacred ground. I will find the temple within the ordinary, the holy within the mundane. Feel this truth settling into your cells, becoming part of your permanent spiritual architecture. Integration of Elena's gift, divine protection. Now connect with Elena's teaching about the guardian who weaves dreams of healing and watches over vulnerable souls. Visualize the guardian's silver presence surrounding you, her protective energy becoming part of your own auric field. This is your second integration, learning to extend divine protection to yourself and others. The Guardian's gift was not meant to remain in the chamber alone. You are being trained to become a guardian yourself, extending protection and healing presence to those who cross your path. Feel the Guardian's loving energy flowing through your heart, center expanding outward like ripples in a still pond. Practice this integration. Think of someone in your life who is struggling, someone who could benefit from feeling protected and seen. Send them the Guardian's silver light through your intention. Visualize them surrounded by the same loving protection that surrounds you. Notice how this practice of extending guardianship actually strengthens your own sense of being protected. In your daily interactions, you will remember to invoke the Guardian's presence whenever someone seems vulnerable or in need. A gentle word, a moment of true listening, a silent blessing. These become expressions of your guardian nature. Breathe into this responsibility and privilege of being a vessel for divine protection. Make this commitment. I will serve as a guardian for others, extending the protection and love that I have received. I will be a safe harbor for those seeking refuge from life's storms. Feel this sacred duty awakening in your heart, becoming part of your soul's purpose. Integration of David's gift, harmonic healing. Connect now with David's discovery of the crystal of infinite tranquility and its teaching that every being has a perfect frequency of health and wholeness. Place your hands on your throat, chakra, and feel the chamber's harmonic frequency resonating through your vocal cords, your words, your very presence. This is your third integration, becoming a tuning fork for healing in the world. David learned that every emotion has its own frequency. Every thought creates vibrational ripples. You are learning to maintain the crystal's frequency of tranquility, regardless of external chaos, becoming a stabilizing influence wherever you go. Feel the crystal's song pulsing through your bloodstream, now recalibrating every cell to its perfect pitch. Your heartbeat becomes a sacred rhythm, your breathing becomes a healing mantra, your words become carriers of harmonic restoration. This is not metaphor, but lived reality. You are becoming a human crystal, maintaining perfect frequency. Practice this integration. Recall a recent interaction that left you feeling discordant or drained. Now imagine replaying that same interaction while maintaining the crystal's frequency of infinite tranquility. See how your calm presence would have changed the entire dynamic, how your steady frequency could have helped the other person find their own center. In future interactions, you will remember to tune into the crystal's frequency before speaking, before reacting, before making important decisions. A moment of internal tunings can transform conflict into harmony, anxiety into peace, confusion into clarity. Commit to this practice. I will maintain the frequency of infinite tranquility in all my interactions. My presence will be a tuning fork that helps others remember their own perfect pitch. Feel this harmonic responsibility integrating into your energetic blueprint. Integration of Sarah's gift, sacred journey. Now embody Sarah's teaching about the moonbeam pathway, where each step dissolves the weight of the world and leads us home to our truest selves. Feel luminous steps forming beneath your feet, even as you rest in this meditation. This is your fourth integration, transforming every movement into sacred pilgrimage. Sarah learned that the journey to healing's as important as the destination that conscious walking can dissolve years of accumulated stress and false beliefs. You are integrating the ability to create moonbeam pathways wherever you go, turning ordinary movement into extraordinary spiritual practice. Visualize silver light emanating from the soles of your feet, blessing every surface you touch. See how your conscious walking can actually purify and uplift the spaces you move through. Every step becomes an opportunity to release what no longer serves while drawing in what nourishes your soul. Practice this integration. Imagine tomorrow morning's first steps out of bed. Instead of rushing immediately into the day's demands, you will pause and activate your moonbeam pathway. Feel how those first conscious steps can set the tone for your entire day, creating space for peace and presence rather than stress and reactivity. Throughout your day, you will remember that every transition, from room to room, from task to task, from interaction to interaction, can become a mini pilgrimage. The path between parking lot and office, between kitchen and bedroom, between problem and solution, all can become sacred journeys when walked with conscious intention. Make this commitment. I will walk through life as a sacred pilgrimage. Every step will be an opportunity to release what I no longer need and draw in what my soul requires. Feel your feet becoming blessed instruments of spiritual practice. Integration of Michael's gift. Sacred listening. Connect with Michael's discovery of the whispered mantras of the walls and his learning that centuries of prayers had created a repository of spiritual wisdom. Place your hands on your ears and feel the chamber walls around you humming with accumulated blessings. This is your fifth integration, becoming a conscious participant in humanity's eternal spiritual conversation. Michael learned that every sincere prayer contributes to a collective reservoir of healing energy, that we are never alone in our spiritual seeking. You are integrating the ability to tune into this vast network of souls who have sought the divine throughout history, drawing strength from their accumulated faith. Feel yourself connected now to every person who has ever prayed for peace, ever sought healing, ever asked for guidance. Their voices join with yours in an eternal chorus of human longing and divine response. You are both individual seeker and integral part of this magnificent spiritual symphony. Practice this integration. When you face difficult decisions or challenging circumstances, you will remember to listen for the whispered wisdom of those who have walked similar paths. In moments of quiet reflection, you can tune into the collective wisdom that surrounds every situation, receiving guidance from the accumulated experience of countless souls. Your own prayers and intentions are now consciously contributing to this eternal repository. Every word of gratitude, every request for healing, every moment of spiritual seeking adds to the vast library of human divine communication that future seekers will access. Commit to this practice. I will listen for the whispered wisdom that surrounds every situation. My prayers will consciously contribute to the spiritual support system that sustains all seekers. Feel yourself becoming both receiver and contributor to humanity's spiritual inheritance. Integration of Anna's gift. Sacred cleansing. Embody now Anna's teaching about the healing spring that bubbles with liquid light and washes away everything that no longer serves your highest good. Feel sacred water flowing through your energetic system, cleansing decades of accumulated emotional residue while restoring your essential purity. This is your sixth integration, accessing the eternal spring of renewal that flows beneath all existence. Anna learned that true cleansing happens from within, that every body of water connects to the sacred source that can wash away pain and restore original wholeness. Visualize the healing spring bubbling up within your heart center, its luminous waters flowing through every cell, every organ, every system of your body. Feel old patterns of thought and emotion dissolving like salt in blessed water, while new patterns of health and joy crystallize in their place. Practice this integration. Each time you interact with water, drinking, bathing, even washing your hands, you will remember to invoke the healing spring's energy. These ordinary moments can become powerful rituals of renewal when approached with conscious intention and gratitude. When emotional challenges arise, you will visualize the sacred spring's waters flowing through the affected area, not to suppress the feeling, but to help it transform and flow freely. The spring teaches that healing happens through movement and transformation rather than resistance and suppression. Make this commitment. I will access the eternal spring of renewal in every moment of cleansing. My relationship with water will become a doorway to spiritual purification and emotional freedom. Feel this sacred element becoming your ally in ongoing transformation. Integration of Thomas's gift. Sacred rest. Connect deeply with Thomas's discovery of sacred sleep, where time bends to serve healing, and rest becomes a holy communion with cosmic renewal. Feel your body settling into the chamber's natural depression that perfectly supports rejuvenating rest. This is your seventh integration, transforming sleep from unconscious escape into conscious spiritual practice. Thomas learned that quality of rest matters more than quantity, that sacred sleep can restore weeks of exhaustion in hours when approached with proper reverence. You are integrating the ability to enter healing sleep states that serve your soul's deepest needs for restoration and renewal. Feel the chamber's influence settling into your sleep cycles, now programming your nervous system to remember its connection to cosmic rhythms of renewal. Your bedroom becomes an extension of the healing chamber. Your bed becomes an altar of restoration. Your sleep becomes a form of prayer. Practice this integration. Tonight and every night forward, you will create a brief ritual before sleep. As you lie down, you will consciously invoke the chamber's energy feeling. Your bed transform into sacred space where healing happens naturally. You will release the day's concerns to the cosmic forces that work while you rest. Your dreams will become more coherent and healing-focused as you learn to program your sleep for specific restoration. Whether you need physical healing, emotional integration, creative inspiration, or spiritual guidance, you can set conscious intentions that direct your sleep toward these goals. Commit to this practice. I will approach sleep as sacred communion with cosmic healing forces. My rest will be conscious, purposeful, and profoundly restorative. Feel your relationship with sleep transforming from unconscious habit to conscious spiritual practice. Integration of Rebecca's gift, sacred living. Finally, embody Rebecca's ultimate teaching about becoming a bridge between worlds, carrying the chamber's wisdom into ordinary life until sacred and mundane are revealed as one seamless whole. Feel yourself expanding to contain all the previous integrations, becoming a living temple that can house infinite wisdom. This is your eighth and most comprehensive integration, recognizing that you are not separate from the sacred space, but are yourself a mobile chamber of healing. Rebecca learned that the chamber's greatest gift was not escape from ordinary life, but the transformation of every moment into spiritual opportunity. Feel the chamber's walls expanding now to encompass your entire life space. Your home becomes a healing sanctuary, your workplace becomes a temple of service, your relationships become opportunities for mutual awakening. There is nowhere you can go that is not sacred ground, no moment that cannot become a doorway to transcendence. Practice this comprehensive integration. Visualize your typical day unfolding with chamber consciousness. See yourself waking with gratitude, moving through transitions on moonbeam pathways, speaking with crystal harmonic frequency, listening for whispered wisdom, cleansing with sacred intention, working under guardian protection, and resting in cosmic communion. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to practice the chamber's teachings. Every interaction becomes a chance to share its gifts. Every moment becomes a choice between old patterns of separation and new patterns of integration and wholeness. Make this ultimate commitment. I am a living chamber of healing. Every breath spreads peace. Every word carries blessing. Every action serves the highest good of all beings. Feel this identity settling into the core of your being, becoming your permanent spiritual foundation, complete integration and empowerment. Now, feel all 8 teachings weaving together into one unified field of wisdom that surrounds and fills your entire being. You are simultaneously standing on sacred ground, protected by divine guardianship, resonating with perfect frequency, walking sacred pathways, listening to eternal wisdom flowing with healing waters, resting in cosmic communion, and bridging all worlds through your conscious presence. This is not a temporary state achieved through meditation, but your permanent spiritual reality when you remember to access it. The chamber lives within you now, available at every moment through breath, intention, and conscious choice. Take 3 deep breaths now, feeling each integration settling more deeply into your cellular memory. With each exhale, commit to living these teachings in your daily life. With each inhale, receive the power and support to maintain this level of consciousness regardless of external circumstances. When you open your eyes, you will carry the chamber with you always. Every room you enter will be blessed by your presence. Every person you encounter will receive the benefit of your integrated wisdom. Every challenge you face will be an opportunity to deepen your practice of sacred living. You are no longer a visitor to the chamber. You are the chamber incarnate, walking in the world as a living sanctuary of healing and transformation. Rest now in this profound truth, knowing that your spiritual work benefits not only yourself, but every being you will ever encounter. The integration is complete. The chamber lives within you. You are home. Sleep now in perfect peace, dear living temple, knowing that tomorrow you begin a new chapter of existence as a bridge between heaven and earth. A healer in human form, a chamber of infinite blessing, walking freely in the world.